be able to respond. Woohoo! Caroline, lovely to have you. Welcome. Yeah. So what we're going to do, welcome to the first, I feel like I should take some clothes off. It's nice and toasty in here. I just want to do a quick introduction and a little land acknowledgement, and I'll explain more about that shortly. So my name is Jamie Black. I'm the founder of Wildcraft Play School, and it's an honor and privilege to be here with Wendy, is it Kotilla? Kotilla in her office. What a treat. This is like, I think this is the first in almost 3 years of coming to someone's home and enjoying all the silly foibles of what it takes to engage with somebody. So sound seems to be coming through now. Okay, good. Thanks for the feedback, everyone. This is lovely. It's really helpful. And I just want to pre-warn you that I will make a request, and it usually takes at least a minute, if not two, to be able to see your feedback. So you'll have to just kind of bear with the journey of, you know, technology, which it's amazing we even get to do this work. So here we are. This is Heart Skills. This is a talk series. And the reason we're having this conversation is because a number of years ago, I started asking folks in the Wildcraft Play School community group, where are people at? What do you want to talk about? What's working? What's not working? And a few months ago, I created a little poll, and I said, in the realm of heart skills, so social emotional skills and coping mechanisms and all that kind of stuff, the number one interest of everyone in the group that responded said place conscious and place-based education was the top. And so since then, I've been crafting an interest and conversations with many folks about what this is and how we're going to have a conversation about this. And I'm really grateful to Wendy for being willing to be my first interview in this journey. So please bear with us in the understanding that yes, it's the first, and we're figuring out the kinks, and you know, I haven't even given Wendy my top 3 questions yet. So we're just going to roll with this and see what comes, with faith that this type of conversation that we've been having naturally on our own already will hopefully feed you and feed folks like you, and share with other community groups what it is that we're talking about, why we're talking about it, and maybe how people can benefit from this type of approach in terms of outdoor education for folks who work with children and youth, and, you know, generally anyone. So here we are. This is Wendy, and and you get to talk to me. As you can see, we just see ourselves there. We don't see a whole group of folks there. But every once in a while, I'm going to sneak back to the Facebook page and see if there's any comments or questions that might spark more inquiry in this interview. And yeah, I just want to do a little land acknowledgement. You have that kind of practice, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to share my piece, and if you have anything you want to add, just let me know. So I've learned that when I do a land acknowledgement, I do my best to make it give you goosebumps. And because of the act of acknowledging this land and the people that have tended this land for a long time, I want you to feel the feeling of a land acknowledgement rather than just hearing it in one ear and it goes out the other. So I'd love to acknowledge the Comox First Nation peoples. That is the umbrella name that gets given to the community in this area that is made up of 3 or 4 different First Nations communities in the region, and I'm still learning how to pronounce their names. So I'm going to do a little, I'm going to cheat here for a second and see if I can pull up my handy dandy signature. If you ever get an email from me, my signature at the bottom lists all of the communities that we have here. So just bear with me for a second. So it's an honor and privilege to be working and playing on Comox First Nation territory made up of the Sathlut, Sasitla, Leekson, Pentlaj, Chache, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, and the Tatpoos. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right as well. And what I've learned in this journey is to just try on speaking the language, even if you fumble through it, even if it feels a bit edgy. And I'm going to trust that those communities are going to forgive me if I don't pronounce it correctly. So in the act of honoring these folks and the work that they have done long before us and what they will do long ahead of us, I want to invite you all to take a moment and take 3 deep breaths. And when you do this, I want you to think about the children that have changed the world. There's been a lot that we've been going through in the last year or so that really has shifted people's awareness of how we need to connect more with the land and honor the First Nation communities that have been here long before us. So thank you to the Comox people of this land. So now I want to give Wendy an opportunity to speak and maybe share a little bit about like your background, who you are, what's your story?
Okay. Well, my father and grandfather were born and raised on Vancouver Island. I wasn't. I moved here in 1964, so I've been on the island since then. Father and grandfather were in Ladysmith, coal miner. My great grandfather was a coal miner in the Ladysmith area. And then we moved to the north end of the island where I lived from 10 to 14. And then to Campbell River and then the Comox Valley. So I've been in the Comox Valley next year, it'll be 50 years.
Oh, wow.
It sounds like we should have a celebration.
I'll be there. I'll bring cake.
Okay. And so my activism started when I was 15 in 1970. Greenpeace formed over the bombing of the Amchitka Islands in Alaska. And we made banners in the school cafeteria and marched the streets of Campbell River. So that was my first activism. So I've been doing this kind of work for a long time.
Yeah.
And so moved to the Comox Valley. Let's see, started commercial fishing in 1984, fished all around the coast, Haida Gwaii, 100 miles offshore, west coast of the island, for salmon, tuna, prawns, cod, and halibut. And then started volunteering with Oyster River Enhancement Society in 1986. And so got involved in salmon enhancement, started taking courses, and then I got a job on the west coast of the island at Carnation Creek Experimental Watershed Project, a long-term study of the effects of logging on fish and their habitat. It's still happening. It's the longest continuous running research, fish forestry research in the world.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a really strong long-term database.
Can you say the name of it again in case anybody wants to look it up?
Carnation Creek Experimental Watershed Project.
And it's currently still being researched, longest
Yep.
research in the world. Wow.
Yeah. And so I worked there for 8 years, 1990 to 1998. But during that time, I got involved the year of the Clayoquot blockade. I got involved with Clayoquot Biosphere Project. So I did fisheries research in the unlogged Clayoquot River Valley for 5 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
one of my projects, the one that stands out most for me, was walking the whole Clayoquot River and doing fisheries research and putting minnow traps in pool habitat every half a kilometer. So I spent 12 days walking
I
the
remember
river
you
in an
sharing.
unlogged watershed. It was amazing.
Yeah,
It was
wow.
amazing. And then
Talk about connecting with the land. And,
oh
and
yeah,
the
it
salmon.
was.
Wow.
I could tell stories about that for an hour. Anyway, so then I got involved in University of Victoria Restoration of Natural Systems diploma program
Mhm.
and did 10 out of 12 courses about Carnation Creek.
Mm.
And the final one, I brought forward the Huayet First Nation traditional knowledge of the watershed.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was another piece of work I've done in my life that I'm very proud of.
Oh, wow.
And
Can you say that again then? What is it called? Huayet.
Huayet First Nation.
Okay.
And so it was my report was the final project for the Restoration of Natural Systems diploma program at University of Victoria.
Okay.
And so there's lots to tell about that too.
Do you have that as a resource on your website or?
No, it's not on my website, but
Okay.
I think it's on if you go to UVic the restoration program.
Okay.
It is in the archives there. And
Okay, well, maybe
can
you and
find
I
it.
can hunt for it
Yeah.
after and we'll provide it as
Sure.
a resource.
Sure, yeah, it's excuse me, it's a really good piece of work, because the scientists came in 1970
Mm.
and they did not even know whose traditional territory it was,
Oh.
so I
Yeah.
kind of initiated that. So yeah, and actually the hereditary chief Tom Happynook, his son Tommy Happynook,
Mm.
is now in the archaeology department at UVic. He's just got his
Oh, wow.
PhD this year
Oh, wow.
at UVic.
Oh,
So-
that must feel good.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
incredible. So what else? So then when I finished that, a couple of years later, I created Youth and Ecological Restoration.
Youth in Ecological Restoration. Just want to make sure you're hearing these, because when you first told me about that, I said, how come I haven't heard about you? You have such a niche and you're working with one kiddo at a time, one youth at a time. Yeah. Amazing.
It's so going for 18 years. Maybe I should have got a glass of water. Maybe
You can have this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just gonna check that. Keep going though. We'll just see if there's any.
Yeah, so I
comments
created
here.
it myself. And I've been getting funding from the Ministry of Children and Family Development
Mhm.
for 18 years. And we've now, I think we're up to about 429 kids. It's one-on-one, youth age 12 to 18. And they let me see my voice here. Excuse me. And it's a 20-hour program, and they work with local environmental groups like Oyster River Enhancement Society. Mars Wildlife Rescue is one of the places.
Mm.
We work with some large Piercy watershed stewards,
Mm.
Solon River Restoration Society, Morrison Creek Stream Keepers. It's all on the website, the groups that we work with. And there's reports and on annual reports on the website, and there's
Mhm.
ecological reports that we do for phase 2 projects. So
Right.
all of the youth at the end of the phase 1, they have to do an oral presentation to a community group about what they have learned.
Okay.
And so they get to review their information. and organize it in a presentation and then present it so they become teachers.
Oh, wow.
And they just, I mean, lots of them are nervous, but they get a certificate, a letter of reference, a $50 honorarium. We provide transportation, pick them up,
Great.
drop them off, lunch, so and
How
all
did the
the
youth get referred to it?
usually through like counselors at the school.
Okay,
Schools.
so
Yeah.
these are youth that need extra support, and
Mhm.
it's using place conscious education
Well, yes,
to connect them
that's right.
back to themselves and build
Yeah.
resilience. That's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, they're learning about the place where we live, and they're learning
Mhm.
about people that do important work in our community, like salmon enhancement work or
Mhm.
restoration type work,
Mhm.
rehabilitation with Mars. It's huge learning. I mean, some of the kids, I remember one kid didn't even know that salmon go to the ocean. I mean,
Mm.
kids have become so disconnected
Mhm.
from the natural world. I mean,
Mhm.
they're all in the video games and everything, which is another form of addiction, really.
Yeah.
Or it can be.
Yeah.
We all use the internet and stuff,
Yeah.
but if you become really obsessed with it, it's not a very positive thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, the program has been really good. I actually got an award, a Distinguished Alumni Award from University of Victoria about 4 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. And there is a film that was done by Ed Carswell, and I raised $9,300 just from our community to do the film.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well
So,
done. Yay. So we might have some experience in place conscious education over here. A wealth fountain of knowledge. Wow. That's such a gift to hear your story. And yeah, I feel like I need to go do a bunch of research to find out more about all the things that you've done. I want to read your reports. I flipped through your website, and yeah, my heart just is full knowing that you're doing this work. And yeah, it's really lovely. So thanks for making some time for this little
you're
interview.
welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I were to pose the question around place conscious education, why did you decide to have this interview?
Because I believe, I mean, there's different ways of saying it. Place-based education.
Mhm.
I refer to it on the YER website as, developing a sense of place, a
Mhm.
sense of, who for the youth, a sense of who they are and what lives here. Like
Mhm.
what fish live here, what birds live here,
Yeah.
what plants, what trees,
Mhm.
like what surrounds us in the natural world.
Mhm.
So they're really, I mean, it's sort of both. They're developing a relationship with the natural world, but also with the human
Mhm.
world,
Mhm.
because they're working with people who are dedicated to restoring, improving the natural world.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And even just in the words that you shared about explaining who you are, walking up a river for how many hours was that?
well, it was
12
12 days,
days.
but probably about 10 hours a day.
Yeah, that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
To be quiet, immersed, physically immersed in the nature. I say that with the kids all the time, in the nature. The monkey mind kind of goes away, and then you start witnessing things that you wouldn't have witnessed when you just go for a hike, good old hike in the woods, and you're getting your heart rate up because you have to. But it's a very different world when you get to just be in nature. And in your case, there was a purpose for it. You were counting, you were setting things up in a way that was bringing research and information, but there's still a lot of time where you just get to be. So I'm curious. I'm gonna start from a place of, for the folks that don't know anything about place-based education, place conscious education, developing a sense of place. If we'll just kind of tackle the beginner kind of realm of this conversation. If we were to speak to folks, readers, watchers, who've never heard of this stuff before, in your story, in your experience, in the programs that you offer, or just, life in general, what is it about this type of work that makes it stand out from just education? Like what makes it place-based?
Because you're outside,
Okay.
I mean, you're not watching things on a video screen.
Okay.
I mean, you get to connect with the natural world and build a relationship. I mean, if I could use one word to describe youth and ecological restoration, it's relationships.
Hmm.
I felt that for years about this work, and to see youth who are struggling in the classrooms and at home for a whole variety of reasons,
Mhm.
and to see, lots of times I feel like, I mean, people want to give me all their diagnoses and everything, and I just don't even care.
Mhm.
Just let me take this kid outside,
Mhm.
and get them away from all the stressors of home and school and in their peer groups and
Mhm.
whatever it is that they're struggling with, and just get them outside. And sometimes the best thing to do is just sit beside a creek somewhere.
Mhm.
It's actually one of my favorite things to do with the kids, is to put them in a pair of chest waders and hike up a creek with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the simple side of things, it can be perceived as just get them outside. So I'm gonna share some things that have been shared with me that makes me realize I need to take another step back a little bit in how do we even get them out there. I had a friend and previous colleague who is one of the most outdoorsy and nature connected. We used to call her Google. You like, she knew the answer to almost everything about the cave systems out at Horn Lake Caves, and expressing like, how do I get my own kids outside? And I was like, you were struggling with that? Like I was so amazed and then humbled, realizing, whoa, it's a totally different story for the parent to take their child and get them to fall in love with the earth, right? So you and I are the mentors. We're outside the family structure, and we're not the ones like getting them off the computers and getting the right gear on their feet so they don't complain about having cold feet and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to dive too far into this with you, but eventually I want to like really tease apart the struggles that families are having to try to get their child to want to be outside in the first place. So then if you're going to put a kid in hip waders, my mind goes to that, like, you want me to what? Like, I'm going to step in this water and you promise I'm not going to get wet. Like the emotional experience that young people go through in that moment, where for you and I, we just have a little chuckle and it's like, yeah, okay, let's see, let's go find out. Maybe you will, maybe you won't, right? And there's something about the mentorship, like you talked about relationships, but there's that relationship as a mentor who's been there, done that, and has the confidence and is willing to just reach a hand out and be like, come on with me, and developing the trust with these young people so that they will actually come with you. And that's like, as much as I feel like the phrase place-based education doesn't quite do it justice, because there's a number of things. I'll share another time where I've gone down this rabbit hole about place-based education. But I have this, it's like we need to fit the word place relationship oriented education or something, because like you said, it's relating to the land and having mentors, having people be the guides for them a little bit, or role modeling, or having peers that are willing to go and do that as well. Like a lot of folks don't just go for a hike on their own by themselves because they're scared of bears and cougars, and it's foggy. Like there's all these reasons why people don't get out into nature. And so I'm curious, when you heard place conscious education, what does that enlist in you as a mentor, as an educator with young people? Like this might be a bit of a challenging question, but when I first wanted to pitch this conversation to folks. Lots of people have heard place-based education. And yes, we have a lot of work to do to help a lot of people get to that place of place-based education. And there's a disconnect between just getting the kids outside and actually mentoring them in a way that not only builds trust with you, but helps them trust themselves in the decisions they make with the land, and then helps them start to, I don't know what words to use yet in this, but it's almost like a spiritual connection with the land. Like when you go and sit next to a river and you stop talking to the person you're there with and you just sit, there's this discomfort and intimacy that starts to happen. And then you start to listen. Like you just listen to the sounds of the water. Sometimes you can even hear words coming out of the water, or, you know, like being able to overcome things. So I'm just curious if you have anything you might want to share around place conscious education, around as a mentor, the relationship and that deeper connection. That makes sense.
Yeah, I guess I don't, I place conscious is, I mean, the first time I ever heard it was from you. And I don't think the words matter,
Mm-hmm.
you know, really, because it's just about forming that relationship. I mean, you know, in regards to YR, you know, building trust with the youth, you know, and yeah, they do think, well, yeah, am I going to get, you know, they comment on, no, I didn't get wet, and the water made the just waiters
Stick to your body, yeah.
You know, stuff like that. And you know, but you know, and sometimes it is just sitting beside a creek. I in Millard Park, there's a old spruce tree that kind of leans over the creek, and I used to take them there. You don't have taken them there lots, you know, just a little bit extra time. Maybe you have an extra half hour before their presentation, and it's just time to go for a walk and sit by the creek and just, you know, not even look at them, you know, just sit there and whatever, and just sit quietly there, you know, and yeah, you can, you know, learn a lot by just being quiet, by, you know, and sometimes that's the thing to do with the kids, you know, and sometimes that's a place where you want to start asking questions about what's going on for them, and you know, or not, you know, it just depends. You just kind of feel it out, you know, whatever's best for the kid. There's no pressure, you know, there's no, like, you know, it's not like school where there's no exam at the end of this. You just learn whatever you learn, and whatever that is okay, and just letting that process happen, you know. You know, and you know, learning that there's 21, I think, different creeks and rivers in the Comox Valley. Like, wow, you know, and learning what watershed they live in, you know, all of that is really place-based or place conscious awareness, you know, and raising that in them. I mean, every single kid learns some things, even the ones that say they don't, especially those ones.
The ones that don't even want to be there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
I've been there.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you know, I mean,
Do you feel like sharing a little bit about, like, maybe you can use an example of one story where, like, how, so I'm trying to imagine who would be watching this. These are going to be folks who, you know, they catch the buzzword of place conscious, place-based education. They like the hard skills. They're curious about it. They want to know more, and maybe they run programs, or they're teachers, or they're teaching teachers, or, you know, like whatever the gamut is. This is basically from parents to teachers to educators to train the trainers, is kind of the types of folks that'll be watching this. And so, is there anything you want to share about how you've just named a little bit, and I kind of want to dig into that a little bit, how you foster connection, relationship with each other, and then connection to the place?
Well, when I sort of touch on something I thought of a few minutes ago.
Okay.
You know, you were mentioning someone you knew was trying to get their kids outside. Well, they got to go outside too. It's not
Yeah.
just, you know,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I mean, the kids are going to, that modeling is just so important, you
Mhm.
know. And now I forget where I was going with the other. Um,
So how like if you have a story that can dig a little bit deeper into how you connect them to place and how you connect them,
well,
make the connection with them in that relationship and their relationship with.
when you build a relationship with them, it takes about, it's 20-hour program. It really takes about, say on average about 10 hours to really develop a relationship with them, and with the one-on-one, it's a powerful way of being and learning with kids. I mean, I can't name any off the top of my head, but there's lots of information out there saying the value of one-on-one, because you don't get into the competition and stuff, right?
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
so, and just, and one of the things is like, there's no top down, there's no like hierarchy. I mean,
Yeah.
it's that, you know, that whatever, I don't work with the kids anymore because I'm getting older and my knees aren't so good and all that.
Yeah.
But whatever the kids are being asked to do, you're doing it too, so that the
Yeah.
kids don't, if you're digging ditches, you're digging them together,
Yeah.
you know, and working side by side, rather than, you know, being, you know, sort of the boss and saying, well, nice job, kid, you know.
Yeah.
No, it's you do it together,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay.
anything that you do together, and
Yeah.
that is really important, because it
Mm.
doesn't make you higher than them, and, you know, the hierarchy stuff, right? You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so that's one of the things that's really important. I mean, you know, just being and sharing. I mean, we share, you know, the names of the plants and the trees, you know,
Mhm.
and the youth support worker now, I mean, he's got a bit of a different style than me, but he's still really good with the kids, and
Mhm.
I'm still mentoring him 2 years later, you
Yeah.
know, like, but he's been involved in the program for 8 years because he volunteered for 6,
Oh wow.
you know,
Yeah.
so.
What are you finding with him that is place conscious in the practices? Like, so I'm going to break this down just a little bit in terms of like like if I were to explain how I do what I do. So I have this kiddo who really wanted to build a shelter, and I'm like, okay, great. And I really like child-led experiences. And so I wait until they kind of decide where they want to go, and he wanted to build a shelter. So I'm like, okay, well, we got to find the best place in this little park. So we hiked around, and I would rate this a B grade, and this is an A grade. And so we finally found a spot, and I waited to see if he would just go start picking up logs, and he wouldn't. And I was like, okay, so I'm just going to start picking up logs. And as soon as I picked up logs, they picked up logs. And then, because they had no experience with building a shelter that's functional, you know, the logs got placed in funny ways. So the way that I choose to lead or guide in that is not to tell them what to do, but to show them maybe what's not working, or ask a question about that, or what's your vision? Do you want to be able to sit up, or do you want to lay down? Is this a survival shelter, or is this a let's hang out and have lunch shelter? And so it gets them thinking, but it's inquiry based, and it's not didactic telling them what to do. And when that happens, they start, it's like their broad vision, barely seeing what's in front of them, starts focusing on, oh, bigger logs or smaller logs. I know this seems really simple, but I'm watching a deeper understanding happening, to the point of they came across lungwort, and there was like, what do I do with this? Is this medicine? And I'd be like, let's look that up. Let's see what it does. And then hearing what it's all about, and how it is, you know, you can make tea for the lungs, but it is shaped like a lung, like it just takes them to another level. So my approach is inquiry-based learning, and is very child-led, because that's what I do as a behavior interventionist. So from your point of view in ecological restoration, do you already have like programming or content you want them to know? And how do you disseminate that in a way that leaves them wanting to connect?
Well, yeah, there's certain things we want them to know. We want them to know the names of the trees and the fish and some birds. I mean, my experience for years and years has been fish, so I know a lot about salmon. And but we want them to know that there's coniferous and deciduous trees and what their names are and what they look like and um um the different species of salmon and how salmon spawn and we don't do it the same way as you because we're working with groups that have a certain they have a certain way of doing things. I
Right,
mean,
they've got a
salmon
program.
enhancement is
Yeah.
a thing that we do with Oyster River, but with the relationships, not just with nature but with the people. I mean, there's all these old retired guys, and in the very beginning, the kids were suspicious of the guys, and the guys were suspicious of the kids. But one time, this kid said, well, two different kids I can think of. I was walking with this one kid up at Oyster River, and I said, well, what do you think of this place? And he says, it's a birthplace it's a birthplace that brings life to the world. And it's like, and that's the way he describes salmon enhancement.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, and another kid to describe the old retired guys up there is like they were like a clan of salmon grandpas.
Oh, that's great.
And we interview the kids like this is quantitative data, right?
Yeah.
And so they're asked preliminary questions and they're asked questions at the end of each workday. And then they're asked post-work questions and post-presentation questions. And so we pull out, it's a lot of work sorting through all the files to pull out the good quotes. But every single annual report has at least 15 youth quotes. And how they describe what they're doing, because it's very different for me to explain what they're experiencing. You got to hear it in their words.
Of course.
So
and you actually help me. There's something that I'm kind of toying with in my mind about place, that initially a lot of people connect place to land, but to me place is a big connection to the people. I feel a sense of place here in the Comox Valley because I am developing these relationships with folks. And so I want to look at the time here. How do you feel about us seeing if there's any questions?
Oh, so that's fine.
Yeah, good. Okay. Well, I'm going to shift a little closer here. This is the fun techno part of this. Okay. Yeah, different times of the year, differences between plants, shrubs. Oh, neat.
What's that?
So I'm just gonna ask, put it out to you, those of you that are watching. Let's see, we've got a couple people watching. Do you have any questions for Wendy around place conscious or place-based education, based on what's been shared so far? And I'm just going to wait a little bit and refresh my screen to see if you've got any questions coming through. In the meantime, I just want to share this thing I'm toying with around place, that what are we doing as a society to connect people with the people on the land? I mean, COVID has done a number on all of us for that, and yay for technology that's keeping us connected in some capacity. But I'm really curious about, and I don't need an answer from you, but I'm just kind of like throwing words out there. Like, are there any examples that you're seeing where people are being connected with the land and the people in a good way? Like, is there anything that you recognize outside of what you're doing in our community or, across BC that.
There's, in the Comox Valley, there's a really strong push to purchase land. We have some pretty instrumental people in our community that are purchasing land in Cumberland Forest, Morrison Creek headwaters, places like that. So, then at least we have these places preserved, in different parks in the Comox Valley Regional District, even in the city Courtney, there's Millard Park. I don't know if that fits in with what you're saying, and in regards to COVID, I think that it might have pushed more people to go outside, because then you could have your distancing and because we still did the program, not in the early days, because nobody really knew what's this going to look like. But then then it was like work safe approved to have us driving, and then the kid in the back, in the seat in the back, and so that was distancing as much as possible. So
yeah, I think about the Cumberland Community Forest Society, and they've really engaged the people through active play in ways that peripherally build community and connection with each other. And then when something comes up that's really specific, like come out and count the bats, we show up. I did, citizens research and stuff like that starts connecting people with what's really happening.
Yes, and they're not the only ones, though.
Yeah.
Comox Valley Land Trust, Project Watershed, Couscous, but what they're doing to restore an old sawmill site. I mean, those of us who've been here a long time know full well that we used to drive by it. I mean,
everybody gets to see the results as it all goes by.
It's been even when the sawmill was there.
Oh yeah.
Because it was I mean, it was loud. There was and there was I think different pollutants that went into the river, and whatever, just go on.
I know.
And what Morrison Creek is an amazing example in our community, and that's been driven by Jim Palmer and Janelle. I'm saying her last name right. They're a couple, and they have been working on that for years. I mean, it was them that initiated the Morrison Creek has its own lamprey, and that became a tool for protecting it, because that's the only one in the world. And so what are we going to do about that? And so the place-based has we have to look at it in different ways. I mean, I did a paper at UVic and honoring all systems of knowledge, and I identified that as scientific, traditional, local, and practical, because the fishermen and the farmer type people are the ones that know the land. They have to know the land. Their survival depends on it, on watching the weather and stuff like that, right? So those are all, I mean, Comox First Nation, I mean, they have traditional knowledge that goes back a long ways, but and these days, or well, for a long time, you got to have the science, but it's like working with one side of your body just to do the science part. You got to have the traditional knowledge and the spirituality. The spirituality that takes you to sit by the side of a river. I know a river in our community where I learned where eagles were bathing, and I took it on myself to study it for 15 years.
Oh, wow.
And I learned it by sitting in one place, not by, you talked earlier about, walking by, and that's a good thing to do, to go for a walk, and you can learn a lot. I have a cedar grove, and I go and I sit in the cedar grove, and just sitting, I mean, it's a spirit spot or a sit spot, and you can learn a lot by doing that, and I've certainly been involved in a lot of research over the years and learning it. But people, I think lots of people don't realize that scientists or researchers, they love the natural world too, and they're curious about it. And curiosity is a big drive to do research, and the wanting to understand, how things work, how things work together. I mean, ecology is how things work together, and there's connections. We could, I don't think we can ever know all of the connections in the natural world, ever. That's what I believe. And I don't, I mean, there's people that think that I know a lot, but I'll never know everything.
Yeah, definitely. We could just keep talking about this, couldn't we? Okay, I'm gonna hit refresh here and see who it seems like we might have a couple of questions here. So, do you think place-based consciousness or education is limited to the natural world, or can it be expanded into the built world of communities, businesses, and populations of people? Oh. This can be to both of us. I'm not going to pick on you that you have to answer that.
Wow. Well, I've already said that the youth program YR is about building relationships with nature and people. But I
well, it extended to businesses and the greater community. Yeah, it's a good question. I have an example. So I'm a member of this group of doctors and therapists and executives and school board members and all that, and they come together, and it's all for children and youth and connecting them. And I was really surprised that I was the only person that did outdoor education, like fully engulfing young people in outdoor education. And so I would bring I volunteer at Innisfree Farm, and I would pick a little flower from something and bring it into the meeting and see if anybody could guess what it was. And it just it pulled the children out of these professionals that they're like, oh, is it this? Is it this? Like they're smelling it. I'm just like, oh my goodness, this is such a funny experience for me to what I live, eat, and breathe in the outdoor education sphere. There's a lot of people that it's not on their radar. It's not in their practice. It's not. And for me, I mean, you might feel the same, that the medicine and the healing for young people, anybody, is to get outside. And, they have that new prescription of nature, RxN, which to us, yes, we roll our eyes. And if that's the way you can hook, can a doctor actually prescribe nature and a walk in the forest or sitting in the forest as a thing? But again, there's a disconnect between what you should do and what you are doing, what people have the capacity to do. Yeah.
You say you brought a flower in. Well, you sparked the curiosity in them, I mean, when I was a kid, I mean, particular on the north end of the island, well, even before that, so that was like 1965 to 1969 or 70. And it's what we did, we were outside all the time. And as a family, we went fishing for trout in the lakes and out on the boat in the Holberg Inlet and salmon, prawns, crab, I mean, it's what we ate, and it just, to me, it's just so natural. So, those experiences as a kid are part of what I bring, and that love for it, and that, and you got to have the passion is for this work is really important. And it sounds like you have that too, I mean, you can't just sort of yeah, well, that's the trees over there, it's just like, hey, did you know, it's just like, and just bringing it forward in a way that invites their curiosity.
Right? Yeah. curiosity hooking them, is it? That's a
Mhm.
whole nother topic we will do another day. Okay, let's see if there's any last questions, and then we'll do a little wrap up here. Thank you to Amanda and Deborah for joining us here. And Caroline, lovely to have you all here. Okay, I'm going to see if there's anything else. And do you think public schools should be trying to learn from a more place-based focus, and how could they incorporate this? I want to name that it's 7 minutes to 2. And I almost want to take that question as the next level. Like, we could go on so many rabbit holes in this kind of conversation. And that question right there is why I did my master's. Like, what can the system be doing to shift to be more place conscious and more outdoor education, more opportunities for connecting with the earth, even if it's just going for a walk?
You know, it's been going on for a long time. I remember when my son was in kindergarten. So he's 5. He was born in 1972. So that's 1977. There was a woman named Ori Weber who taught kindergarten at the Solom School.
Mm.
And she would take them out to Portuguese Creek, which is near the school, in the springtime, and just look at the creek and the anthills that were forming, and then she had a farm where she had horses, and we went there every June. You know, I was involved. I ended up being teacher's assistant. You know. But you know, I mean, and so that's in the late 70s, you know, and I think that lots of schools have maybe not all of them, but you know, it's where the kids go at, you know, at recess and lunch hour. It's like the little creek over there, you know, like at Puntland School, and Morrison Creek is there, and Vanier has the Gary Oak Forest there. I think that there's, you know, places, maybe not every single school, but there's places like that to take the kids to, like take the groups. You know, there's all kinds of school groups that go to Oyster River Enhancement Society. You know, I mean, you know, there's things already happening, and more could be encouraged. Like, take groups up to Morrison Creek. You know, I mean, you know, but I don't know. You know, you can't always rely on just volunteers, and so make this
A priority in the
well,
budget.
that's right. You know what? I just last school year started receiving money from School District 71.
After how many years?
17 years.
17 years.
And I'm getting it again this year. And finally, and the first funding came from Ministry of Education and Mental Health, and that was a huge acknowledgement of the work that the Youth and Ecological Restoration Program does with the kids, the students, you know, and yeah, it took a long time, but I'm not going to be able to stop now. You know, so, you know, so you know, that's wonderful. And I mean, I don't really personally, I don't want to you know, develop more programs. That's somebody else's work. You know, I think the model that is YER is really strong. I've proven it over and over again. You know, I mean, 18 years is a good history, good long history. You know, we also do phase 2 projects, and we've had a partnership with Comox Valley Regional District for about 12 years. We do an ecological inventory every year in a local park. And they provide money to YER, CVRD provides money to YER to hire a biologist to work with the kids. And so the work that's being done with the guidance of a registered professional biologist is updating the ecological knowledge of our local parks. And on the website for YER, there is an ecological reports page. And we've been, I don't know if it started in 2008 or exactly when, maybe it's more like 2005. Anyway,
Yeah.
and we do 2 every year. I get a grant in aid from CVRD every year, and I roll that over into a biologist. So,
Yeah.
for example, this year we did, we mapped the property next to mine here.
Mhm.
I've been doing, I think there's something like 5 ecological inventories we've done here.
Yeah.
And we set up with the guidance of GW Solutions, hydrogeologist in Nanaimo, 6 water monitoring sites for quality and quantity that are done once a month.
Oh, wow.
And we involve, so we're creating a database here.
Great.
And,
Wow.
so-
Gosh, that's so exciting. It's a good thing to kind of wrap up this conversation because I want to give you space to be able to share with folks. And I want to thank you, friends who have joined us here today. I really appreciate you being here with us. So I just want to give you a space right now to name anything you want to refer people to. So your website, what exactly is the spelling?
Okay.
If you want people to reach out to you, if you don't, it's good to be clear about that.
No, sure. I welcome people to reach out to me at Youth and Ecological Restoration. The website is just youthecology.ca. It's pretty simple. It's a great website. All the reports, the annual reports, the ecological reports, program descriptions are on there, and you can send us an email through there.
Are you looking for anything right now? Like, do you need any support or resources or anything?
Not really. I mean, the program's really established,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
don't really need anything at this
Okay.
point. I mean, I have.
It's nice to have people witness what you do though, and read what you're doing.
Oh, there's the films on there. There's a 35-minute film. It's on the homepage, and you just scroll down a little bit, and that's something that you can watch and provide comments on. I don't know what else to.
And watch out for you in local news when you get captured and things. And I want to invite you to stay connected with this community in any way that we can support each other and continue the conversation. Like, I feel like that last big question about how to support the education system to do more of this. Yes, some of it is happening, and what would it take for there to be more? So yeah, do you have any last words you want to share?
No, not really. Thanks for joining us. It's a really good opportunity for me to share what work that I'm involved in to bring youth out into the natural world in the Comox Valley.
Yeah, it's been a privilege.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yes.